And that would be another thing that I would tell women, and men that have to be single parents. Don't run away from the gut feeling. And it's okay to walk away, if you don't think that it's a good thing. So that's what
Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible. Before we start the next conversation, I want to invite you to check out my amazing book, The Gift Inside, a powerful guide for healing your body, mind, and soul. Reclaim your strengths and awaken your true potential. Whether you are navigating heartbreak or simply seeking deeper fulfillment, this book offers the tools to turn your struggles into triumphs. It is time to unlock the gift within you. Available now on Amazon, or you can check it out on my website, www.irinashehovtsov. Single Parent Success Stories. Today we have a special guest, Bambi Lynn. She has 6 adult children and 13 grandchildren. She was a single mom raising them for the kingdom. She homeschooled for 27 years, and now she is a grandma living her best life alone, but becoming who she was meant to be, even in the midst of the pain, and spend time healing from the life of being a single parent. So welcome, Bambi. It is a pleasure to have you.
Well, I'm so excited to be on your call. It's funny, I picked the Believe Cup today, because as a single parent, you can believe in anything and it's going to happen. It just may not look the way we thought it was going to look. But if we just keep believing that we're going to get through it, we'll get to the other side. So I thought it was kind of cool that that's the mug that I picked today.
Yeah, so right. We can make anything we believe can come true if we believe. So belief is important.
Absolutely.
So please share with us, how did you become a single parent?
Well, through divorce, that's how, I had been married twice. Both ended in divorce. One ended with infidelity and the other one ended with being a victim of domestic violence. So I spent time in between being a single mom. Plus I was a single mom at 16 years old because I had a teenage pregnancy. So all throughout my life, there's been a lot of times of singlehood. And now I'm single now and have no intentions of getting married again.
You're done with this.
I'm done. I got the t-shirt for it, bought the t-shirt and wore it, and, now I'm done.
All right. Awesome. What were some of the challenges that you faced when you were a single parent?
Oh, I think the challenge is, like most single parents, first of all, you have to grieve the death of the dream. That was very, very difficult, to realizing that you're going to do this alone and realizing somebody didn't love you enough to stay and go through the grit and the grime of life. And the idea that I'll never sit on the front porch as an old lady, dreaming and talking about the good old days when our children were young. I would say that was one of my greatest heartache, is because as a mom, as a woman, I always wanted to be a mom, and I always wanted to be a homemaker and be able to have my grandchildren come over and make cookies with me. And, that's not happening because I have to work or I have to do other things in life. I would say the poverty level, we were extremely poor. There wasn't a whole lot of money. And plus, because I did homeschool, I had to find ways to make money to provide for my children and still be able to homeschool, still be able to hang on to that dream, of homeschooling my kids. So that was very, very difficult, in those years. And really believing God for everything. I remember sitting on the couch one day and saying, okay, God, it's just you and me. You're my husband. You got to figure this out. You got to walk this out with me. I need my telephone bill paid, and I need the electric paid. So let's figure this out and how we're going to do it. So I would say that those were the 3 top things that really, affected me. as a single mom.
What helped you along the way? How did you get to that belief part? Because I know it could be difficult to get there, to believe when you sitting in the midst of what is happening and believing that there are better days are coming. So what helped you?
I would say that probably most of all is my faith, that helped me, that I believed that God was a God of impossibles, that he made everything possible. I just believed in the power of prayer. I believed that if I prayed it and God said it, he was going to provide for me. And there were so many ups and downs. There were so many dark times and crying till I couldn't cry anymore. And, in the beginning of walking this out of, single parenthood, I remember times of just despair, thinking I can't go one more day, wondering how we're going to survive this. And somebody told me one time, we were talking about marriage, and I said, how did you make it to 45 years? And she said, one moment at a time. And I realized that's also my life as a single parent. How did I make it? One day at a time, and sometimes one moment at a time, because I only need to live that moment once. So if I can get past that moment, then I can continue to go on to the next moment. And if I can believe that every day, every night becomes a day, every storm becomes a rainbow. If I could continue to believe that every day becomes something different than what it was the day before. And I had to hang on to that. And I hung on to that for dear life, wondering that this chapter is not going to last forever. And if I can get through this chapter, if I can get through this day, then I'm going to make it to the next.
Were there any books that you read or any person that kind of
I had an amazing group of friends, that carried me through the process. I had an amazing group of friends that allowed me to cry, stomp my feet, scream, do whatever I needed to do. But then after that, they were then going to help me give me solutions. Then they were also going to then give me the truth of the matter. Because when you go through a divorce and when you become a single parent, you believe a lot of times that your worth was in that. Your worth was in you being a wife. Your worth was in that relationship. And then when you've been shattered and all the pieces of your life have been thrown to the ground, you wonder where your worth is. And so that's where you have to find your friends and you have to find your community that helps you to reestablish your worth, that I'm just as worthy as a single mom as I was as a married mom. I'm just as worthy as a mom that deserves to have these beautiful children, even if I have to do it alone. And so I think that my friends were one of my greatest support system. They made sure that I was not an island. They made sure that they were part of my community. And of course, I read some really great books, during that time, but this is, I've been a single mom for a long time. So I look back at some of things that I read that necessarily weren't the greatest books, parenting and how to discipline your children, how to parent. There wasn't a lot of single parent books at the time, when I was going through being a single mom. There wasn't a whole lot, and there wasn't a whole lot of time for me to read. I needed my friends. I needed somebody. I needed people in the flesh, for my life. So I would say that my friends really helped me to get to the next days.
That's great. And you're so right. The environment and how they say, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to get back to yourself.
Exactly.
It takes a village to believe again. It takes a village in any endeavor that you want to achieve. So yes, awesome. If you were to go back in the past, what kind of advice would you give to younger Bambi?
I wouldn't have been if I could go back, I wouldn't have been afraid to say, no, I didn't want to get married. I think that for me, my second husband, I had my twins before we got married. And I knew I could see some of the red flags. I could see some of the things that weren't good. But because I wanted to protect my children and I wanted to make sure that my children were with me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I made that decision to get married. And knowing not that he had done anything physically to me before I got married, but I could see some patterns, that I let go of those red flags. And I did it because I thought, and I still do feel that way, I thought I was protecting my sons, that if I could be with them, then I could be the one that was going to rear them and going to be able to bring them into adulthood. So there are red flags. I was just telling my one of my grandsons, it's 14, we had a day together, and I said, never turn away from that gut feeling that's inside of you. I said, that gut feeling, there's something, there's butterflies that, start churning inside of your belly. Don't run away from that gut feeling. And that would be another thing that I would tell women, and men that have to be single parents. Don't run away from the gut feeling. And it's okay to walk away, if you don't think that it's a good thing. So that's what I would tell myself back, 27 years ago. I would say, Bambi, don't be afraid to walk away. I still got you.
Yeah, you're right. I think oftentimes we disregard ourselves, our gut feeling, like you say, because we are so conditioned to listen to figures of authority or other people in our life. Meanwhile, we have that inner compass to tell us anytime which way to go, but we choose to ignore it. So, yes, I love that advice. Thank you. What do you think is the best trait to instill in a child?
Oh, wow. I parented very intentionally. We lived, especially with my sons, when my daughters, each one of them, I had a vision before I was even divorced. I had a vision and a plan. I wrote a vision down on a piece of paper on how I wanted my girls to be raised, or how I wanted my boys to be raised, and what characteristics that I wanted for their lives. And, because the Bible says without a vision, people perish. Without an idea, people give up on themselves. Without a purpose, people stop, living, maybe not physically, but they stop living mentally, psychologically and things like that. So I had a vision, of how I wanted my children to grow up. And I was very intentional of that. We lived in the city. So I knew the statistics. I knew the statistics of my children going wayward. I knew the statistics of my boys going into a gang. I knew the statistics, whatever. I can't say it. The certificate. Oh my goodness, I can't say it now. I knew what would happen, because the rate of what happens to children that are single. I try to, make sure that I stayed away from people that, that I thought would hurt my children, because statistically, the abuse rate, for sexual abuse, if you allow other men into your home that aren't the fathers, I try to really stick to not allowing my children to become victims of my divorce, but that I raise them intentionally. And I think that was the hardest part, because a lot of times you feel so bad for yourself. And sometimes as moms that are single parents, we feel so bad that we're such single parents that we just let everything to chance. And we still can't give up on the next generation. I still couldn't give up on my children. I still couldn't give up and allow them to just go wherever, because they were hurting just as much. So I still was very much in their lives. And I would so recommend women, you have to realize they're going through the divorce too. They're going through the singlehood too. And just to be careful what you allow into your home after, because your children are very vulnerable. So I made sure that I was part of their lives, and that they were going to become very successful men and women, for our communities.
Thank you. Yeah, you're right. We should watch out what we allow into our immediate environment. What are some of the, I guess, non-negotiable things that allowed you to, what is the most important thing for you during the day? What you cannot live without?
Oh, now?
Yes.
Oh, wow. What can I live? I can't live without worship music in my home. I have to wake up and immediately say, Alexa, play worship music. I can't live without that. I can't live without going through around my house and praying, for God's protection over my house and over my children, and my grandchildren. So those were things that definitely, and I can't live without a cup of coffee, which is so weird. It never was like that. And I do have cups like this. I have a whole bunch of, they're called Ray Dunn. The person is Ray Dunn, and she has mugs that all have words on the mugs. And so I have like 25 of the mugs. And so every day I pick a mug that I feel like I need that for today. So today, that's why I picked believe, that I need to believe the impossible. I need to believe that I'm significant. I need to believe that everything is taken care of, and that, today's going to go exactly the way that's supposed to go, because that's what days are like.
You're right. It's all about what the intention that we set for the day.
Absolutely. And it has to be intentional. Our lives, because we all, I'm a single parent, and I'm a single person in my home. I just lost my job about a month ago. So I have to fill my life with things that's not going to keep me in bed. That's going to keep me motivated. Right now, I am building a platform to be a woman of influence. So I do, podcasting. I'm writing another book. I blog, things that keep me working. I may not be getting an income right now, but it's still continually to build a platform. So that's what I'm doing now, because you can't stop. Because if you stop, you start feeling sorry for yourself. And I don't want to feel sorry for myself.
Yes, that's a very good motivating factor.
Absolutely. And coffee helps.
Favorite coffee? How do you like your coffee?
Oh, a lot of creamer. I just only want one cup. And really the reason why I drink a cup of coffee is because I just love holding it. I love sitting outside of my patio, and I love holding a hot cup of coffee. So it goes in the microwave a lot, so that it's always just hot. I think sometimes I just like the feeling of it.
I think it's the experience. That's what you look forward to.
Exactly. I think that's what it is. I'm looking for the experience of the coffee.
Awesome. What is your proudest accomplishment?
I would say not giving up on homeschooling my kids. Mm-hmm. That I finished the race, that I started when I had 4 babies under the age of 22, at 22 years old, under the age of 5. And I started homeschooling in 1992. And I didn't give up until my boys went to the military. And they were my last out of my home. And I would say that homeschooling kept me grounded. It kept me focused, and it kept me with a vision. And it also, I would say that it was one of my proudest moments that I finished that race, and I can be proud that I finished it. Not all of my children agreed with wanting to be homeschooled, and I'm okay with that. But I do have 3 out of the 6 of my children that do homeschool their children, and for different reasons than what I did. So yeah, it's a legacy, and I got to know my kids far more than if they had to go to school. Plus, I had to heal also, because I had done it as a single mom, and I could have homeschooling them gave me the desire to live. It gave me the desire to get up in the morning, because I just didn't put them on a school bus and go back to bed, kind of thing. And I'm not dissing that, but it gave me a purpose, as I thought I had no purpose in what was going to be my goal, because now I'm not a wife, so homeschooling absolutely gave me a purpose. And it was the most amazing accomplishment that I've ever accomplished in my life.
Wow. What was, what was the most difficult part about homeschooling?
That they were in your face all the time. That when you were talking on the phone, you know how your children, when you're talking on the phone and you're telling a story and stuff like that, and your children are going, "That's not how it happened, Mom. No, we didn't do it. That didn't go that way." And you're like, what conversation? And I know that every mother has to deal with that. You get up, or the time all your children are all like playing and they're doing something, and then all of a sudden you're on the phone and they're right at you. Where'd you come from? Like, how did that happen? You were playing, but all of a sudden you hear, "Hi, how are you doing today?" And you're right up me. So that was really some of the difficult, because you didn't have any time alone. And they were young, and they invaded your privacy. So I loved homeschooling, but I had no privacy. And I've learned to tell people, because my kids would say, "Mom, that's not how it happened." And I learned to now tell people when I'm talking on the phone, this may not be totally the way that it happened, but this is how I remembered it. Because they're in the back of my head constantly. It didn't happen that way. Or I would say 4 people and they'd say, "No, Mom, there was 3. Get out of my conversation. Have you ever had that happen?
But yes.
See, that's universal.
Yeah, yes. If you could choose to do anything for a day, what would it be?
I would love if I could do it for a day, or if I could do something that I had a lot of money and money wasn't the issue. I would rent a yacht, and I would have all of my children and my grandchildren on that yacht in the middle of the ocean for us all to deal with all of the muck of life, and to talk about, the hurts and the pains, and don't get off of that yacht until we have all been united. If I had all the money in the world, that's what I would do. And if it took a month, you're on the yacht with me for a month until we can deal with some of the issues, because when people think about only being a single mom when your children are young. You really don't go beyond and think about a single mom as an adult. I have 6 children, so I have 6 different stories. I have 6 different perspectives, 6 different ways that they have looked at our lives. And some of them, I'm a villain in their story. Some of them, I'm a hero in their story. And that has been a hard thing for me to accept as a mom, because as a single mom, all I wanted to do was do the best I possibly could. I wanted to give them the best life I could, even in the midst of all of their pain. But then they all become adults. And they're all going to have different stories on how you handled it and how you didn't. So I want to be on that yacht to let's talk about the dirty. Let's talk about the messy. Let's talk about what you feel that I did or I didn't do, as a single mom in your life. And why am I the villain in your story, but I'm the hero in this other person's story? Same household, but different stories and different perspectives.
Yeah, it's like if you were given a recipe how to make pancakes, and you would do them one way, same recipe, same ingredients, but the result is so different. I have pancakes like I make, we have a recipe, and my mom makes completely 2 opposite different things.
Exactly. And
even though the ingredients are the same, exact measurements, exact methods, but end result totally different.
Absolutely. And I think too, when you become, because a lot of times when we talk about singlehood, just like I said, we do talk about when our children are younger. We don't talk about the effects as an adult. As a single mom, as an adult, I go to Christmas by myself with my children. If something tragic happens in our family, I had a grandson that passed away hours after he was born. I had to deal with that all by myself. All of my children had spouses and people to deal with, and laid in bed to be able to talk about the hurt and the pain of that. I had to do it all by myself. And sometimes your children, because you're dealing with life all by yourself, sometimes your children will say, "Oh, you're making this about you." No, but I want you to understand that I'm doing this alone. I want you to understand that I don't have somebody to talk to and to combat, the things. And so as a single mom, as an adult with adult children, there's still those pains. There's still those issues. They're just not in your face continually. But when your children get married, you're by yourself. You're both on, and then you may have to be with your ex-spouse, but they may have another person in their lives. And so pictures, when you're having pictures done, you're alone. And so I think when people think of singlehood, they think of, young children. They don't think of the ramifications of a mother that is single with adult children.
Empty nesters. But
yeah.
As a single, I had another guest on the podcast, and he actually wrote a book, Single Parent Empty Nesters. Well, he started with regular empty nesters, and then he focused on the single, and he said it's actually not enough studies about who are single parents and how they're dealing with life after the children had left, and how do they keep on going, and what do they occupy themselves with. So yes, totally, I agree with what you're saying, that I think we gotta prepare for that stage. As that stage comes, how we're gonna occupy yourselves, and what would be the things, like you said, I find things for me to get me out of bed so I can keep going. So it's important to do that for yourself, for your mental health, for your well-being. And kudos to you, how you dealt with grief and sadness and all of that all by yourself. And
we tell parents, because all of my children are gone. So we tell the young parents, take in the moment, hold your children longer, sit down and color with them. But in the midst of everything, we can't comprehend that the next chapter is going to be coming soon. So we get so caught up in, so even if I tell you, just hold your child longer, you probably aren't going to do that because you're in the midst of the chaos of raising this, this stage. So we can tell people, what it feels like to be an empty nester, but you're not going to understand it, and you're not going to grieve it or talk about it or try to do something different until you're in that chapter. Nobody could have ever prepared me for the pain and the devastation that it was to be an empty nester. Nobody could have ever prepared me for the day that I put my sons on a bus for them to go into the military, and I came home and there was nothing there. There is nobody that could have prepared me for that, and the wretched pain and agony that I went through as I heard their voices within the walls of our home, as I heard their giggles within the walls of our home, as I heard their shenanigans. Nothing could ever prepare me that the last two children were never coming home again as me being a mommy. Now I was a mom, and nobody prepares you for that. And I just tell women all the time, just, during that time, just hang on and cry, because you know what? It is okay, because now the next season of your life is coming. Grieve the season that has to be let go. And it's okay. And it's okay if you don't get over it fast, because now I'm like, what am I going to do with my life? All I knew from the age of 16 years old was to be a mom. That's all I knew. And now I'm being forced into doing something different. And now, we raise our children for our children to move on, but nobody tells us when they move on how much pain that's going to be for us. And we don't do it until we're in that stage.
For me, that stage came sooner, not in that sense, but I was associating myself with being someone else's mom and spouse. And when I became a single parent, I no longer knew who I was. Yes, I had my children, but I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know what I liked, what I disliked, what makes me me, if I take off the labels of being this person, because we have so many different facets of our life. And I think when we are in this role, when we are married or when we are parents, we are so focused on that role that we stop seeing other dimensions of our life. Absolutely. Meanwhile, they're always there. We just don't notice them. Our focus is kind of limited on one place. And for me, it took me, I started doing kind of personal development and growth and reading and learning to discover who I am, to rediscover those pieces of myself that I didn't know I had. And I'm grateful for that I went through that process and I was able to learn so many incredible things. And that I started that journey. So I cannot compare, of course, to you, being an empty nester. I'm not there yet. But in terms of rediscovering who you are as a person and putting pieces of yourself back together and seeing life in a different way. Yes, you are a mom. Yes, you are this person, but there is so much more to life. There is so much more that you can create, and everything is possible. Like you said, if you believe, I think it's all coming down to the belief that we have and the story that we tell ourselves. Because every single day, every single time we can rewrite our story. Our past does not define the future. We can always recreate what we desired. Like you said, you had created a vision for your children of how you want them to be, and you were able to help it realize. So now you got to create a vision for yourself.
Absolutely. And that's why I became an author. I became an author at 53 years old. I wrote my very first book, and then I wrote my second book, and now I'm having my third book edited. And you realize, wow, I do have a gift. And, I love to be on platforms and public speak. My dream, my goal in the next 5 years is that I want to be on a TED Talk. I couldn't do that as a mom, with 6 kids. I couldn't have those kind of dreams. But looking now, I'm taking a course to be a life coach. I'm having somebody take me step by step and to have a podcast, those things, that I love to do. I know that I was called to speak, and I know that I was called to make a difference into people's lives. And now I get the opportunity to do that. I couldn't have written a book with 6 children and homeschooling them. And I couldn't have written the book that I wrote because I wrote my memoir. I couldn't have written it in my 20s and my 30s because I still had more living to live. I still had more experiences. And now, it's like, you write a book, you can write 100 books. Right now, I have a blog, and you think you don't have anything to write about, and something always comes up. You're like, oh my goodness, let me write about this. That it gives you a different kind of passion and, an excitement in life, that I'm on the next plateau of this next journey of becoming. There's that word becoming. I think that something happens into a woman, especially, when they start getting into their 40s and their 50s, that we realize that we are, just like you said, there's more parts of us. There's more pieces, of us. I'm not just a single mom. I'm not just a Nona. I'm not just a parent, but who is Bambi? And I've had to been on that discovery to find out who I am and I've realized for myself, and I continue to tell women, we are superheroes. We've survived and we've thrived our lives. Our stories have defined us to be superheroes because we survived them. And so I tell women all the time, put your cape on. You're a superhero. You are superwoman in the flesh because you have conquered and you have survived the things that have gone through your life. And you're out there plowing the field for the women that are behind you, that are looking to you, because you have survived and thrived.
Yes, totally agree with you. I have also became an author.
I know. I saw that. That is amazing. Isn't that such an amazing feeling? Like you have your book in your hand and you're like,
yes,
this is mine.
Yeah.
I know. I'm just so proud of you. Yeah, this is this was my first one. You're just so to hold it in your hand when it comes to you and you're like, this is mine, this is mine. It's the coolest feeling. What did you do what did you do to celebrate?
Oh, this was my 6th one.
Oh, you're 6? Oh my word. That's awesome. Wow.
It was my first solo. The other ones I did was a contributions. I started in April of 22. Was my first book. And it's unreal.
And other people though, right? So this is your very first book by yourself.
Yes.
That is awesome. So what did you do to celebrate then?
I just rested because I was so tired. I was very ecstatic that this came to be because it took 10 years in the making and 4 years of writing process to put it all together.
Wow, that's a long time. That is amazing. I remember when I read, have you read your book all the way through then? Have you sat on your bed and taken your copy and read it?
Of course, many times.
Well, because when I got mine in my hand, I sat on my bed and I read it for the whole, throughout the whole night. And, I cried, I wept, I closed my book, and then I'm like, I'm not this person anymore. Because mine's my memoir. And I'm like, I'm not this person anymore. But now I believe that God's giving me the opportunity to be able to find the women that are like this, that need me to say, you have courage and you're brave and you can tell your story, and your story will heal you and others. So I remember closing my book, for the first time and like, wow, this little girl went through some stuff and she created me to be who I am today because I went through some stuff. So I went out and celebrated. I had friends and we went out to go celebrate that my first book was in my hand. And then, the second book was amazing, but there's something about your very first book that it's yours. Yeah, that's kind of cool. That's amazing.
Thank you. What kind of advice would you give to single parents who are just stepping onto the journey of single parenting?
Wow. Take the time to mourn and don't take all the responsibility. Don't make it that it's all your fault and that you failed, because you didn't fail. And make sure that you rise above the situation and dig yourself out of the pit and continue to thrive into who you are. And now you can parent. A lot of times, some of us that were married, and now you can parent the way that you wanted to parent without somebody breathing down your back telling you that you should parent this way or you shouldn't. And also, I think to a point too, even though it's the hardest thing, one of the hardest things you'll ever have to go through, also rejoice of the fact that you don't have to go through it again forever. Sometimes we pick people in our lives that we had no idea what they were going to do to us and what was going to happen. But once that is over, you don't have to go back there. Now you can start the healing of the decisions. And right now I look at it, the fact that, my second husband was, was a victim of domestic violence, and he was like the elephant in the room. So when I told my story, I could tell my story of him being the elephant in the room, him being the main character, and how he destroyed my life and how he hurt me to the core. But once I started the process of healing and I got rid of him out of the room, and then I became the elephant in the room, and I had to deal with myself, because there's a reason why we picked the people that we picked. There's a reason why we felt as women, and I'm just saying women because we're just talking about that, but as women, there's a reason why we thought that we deserved the crumbs on the ground when we really belonged at the banqueting table. And sometimes we pick spouses on the condition of our hearts. And now you have the opportunity to be able to really do the healing of the onion. And you're going to finally get to the core of that onion. And because the onion, I tell people too, with an onion, the beginning stages of an onion make you cry and cry and cry and cry. But then there's a point as you stop peeling the onion and you get to the core of the onion, the tears are all gone. And the process begins, because you have to mourn the death of a dream. You have to grieve the death of something that you thought was going to last forever. And then once you start doing that, you start being able to be who you were always created to be.
You're so right.
Thank you.
If people would like to connect with you, learn more about you, where would they go?
Well, you can go. I just joined TikTok. Can you believe that? My children and a couple other people said, you have to go on TikTok. My TikTok handle, or whatever it's called, I don't know what it's called, but it's called Healing Through Stories. You can also find, I have a website and I am a blogger, and that is also healingthroughstories.com. Healing Through Stories is all one word. And so you can sign up and subscribe to my website and receive a story every week. You can also find me on Facebook, which is Bambi Lynn. Excuse me. You can also find me on Instagram, which is lynn.bambi. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So I have all these different platforms that you can, find me on. But TikTok is the new one. So I haven't quite figured it all out. So just give me some grace.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
No, I'm just hoping that people, when they listen to this podcast, that they also be encouraged, that there is the other side. That there is the other side, that we can blossom into who we were created to be, and that we can stand alone, and that we can look in the mirror and see that we are superheroes in our own lives. So I just hope that people are encouraged, by this conversation of knowing that there are second chances, and you haven't failed. You haven't failed this, because you get tomorrow again, and you get another moment to live, to mess up again, and to make it right again. All over again, over and over and over again.
Yes, there is no failure in life. Everything is a feedback loop. We get Absolutely. To learn, do something, and if it didn't work out, we learn from the experience. And if it did work out, we celebrate the experience. And
Absolutely.
You said that every day we can create a brand new day. We have this gift of present.
Absolutely. And, and I do tell, I went skydiving when I was 49 years old. And I remember walking, and I was so cocky, thought, oh, this is a breeze. Everybody talked me into it. I'm like, I can do it, harnessed to the hilt. And I had these words written on my arm, live with no doubt, blah, blah, blah. We get up at 17,000 feet. I'm the first one that's shoved out, pushed out of the plane. And, it was the most incredible, stupidest, amazing, magical, ridiculous thing I ever did, being pushed out of a plane for 7 minutes. I'm going all over the place. I'm like screaming, going, what have I done? And then they tell you you're going to, make sure when you land on your butt. I'm trying so hard to land on my, butt. And I tell people that's life. That's that is the definition of life. Getting pushed out of a plane and just doing whatever needs to be done in order to survive. So parenthood's that way, being a single parent's that way, marriage is that way. It's just the unknown and just going for it. So go skydiving, you understand exactly what parenthood is all about.
I love that comparison. Wow. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Oh, there's many more.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really loved having you.
Well, thank you so much. It was such a blessing. And I hope that this encourages your listeners. And oh my goodness, be blessed with your book. And, and I'm sure you have many more ideas inside of your brain now to write again. So thank you so much.
Thank you.